Hello, everyone, and welcome to CMO Show and Tell, where we demo top AI use cases for marketers. My name is Jonathan Metrick. I'm a four-time CMO and Chief Growth Officer at Sagard. Sagard is a VC and PE fund focused primarily on fintech, financial services, and B2B SaaS. And I have the privilege of spending the majority of my time talking to CMOs, founders, and CMOs about marketing. And unsurprisingly, the number one topic that everyone kind of often wants to talk about is AI. And I think we have maybe almost 30 countries that kind of RSVP'd for this session around the world. So not only is it AI popular in SF, Toronto, London, San Francisco, and New York, around the world, I think everybody's kind of top of mind thinking about AI. And in my conversations with CMOs and marketers, I think there's a mix of excitement, but also people are overwhelmed a little bit with AI. And they're overwhelmed by the pace of change, how rapidly the space is evolving, the fact that the tools and features keep evolving and changing over every couple months or so. And there's no established playbook yet, right? There is no best practice that people can follow because the space is so emergent. And so really the purpose of CMO Show and Tell, which is about what we're about to kick off here, is to highlight some of the very practical use cases that marketers are using AI for. How are people actually using these tools? How are they building with AI to better solve consumer problems? I've been doing CMO Show and Tell for about a year now. This is our fourth one. And it's been really interesting to see the landscape shift a little bit. I think last September, we moved from kind of, we should be testing AI to a world where, okay, we're using AI and starting to get some kind of use cases and test cases in. And I think now we're at a point where folks are really asking the question, how is AI impacting my P&L, right? Are we saving costs with these pieces? But more importantly, can AI open up new revenue opportunities? What does AI allow us to do now that we could never do before? And I've got some incredible folks on the call today who are going to be demoing use cases of how marketers are using AI to unlock new revenue opportunities and more importantly, create outputs that were never possible before prior to the world of AI. A few logistics before we kick things off. We are recording this session, so by all means, feel free to take your notes, but we will be sending this to folks after if you've signed up. And secondarily, we are in webinar mode, but we will be using the Q&A feature. So we'll be having each presenter demo. We'll do a few Q&A after. So if you have questions, by all means, feel free to use the Q&A function. And we'll try and tackle as many of those questions as possible during the demos, and if not, toward the end. Now, I'll be quiet. I will kick off with things you folks actually dialed in to listen to, which is the presenters and the demos on AI. So I'm going to do a bit of a round robin. I'd love for the folks in the room to kind of introduce themselves. So maybe your name, your role, your company, and then what AI tool and use case you'll be demoing through. So maybe Phoebe, if you want to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Phoebe Law. I'm the Senior Manager of Systems Design and Optimization at Wealthsimple. I am not a marketer. I am on the operations side, but I've spent a lot of my career on the revenue side, so marketing is near and dear to my heart. And I will be demoing our Decagon support chat, specifically focused on promotion enrollment. Really excited to show everyone.
Awesome. Fraser, you want to go next?
Hey, everybody. I'm Fraser. I'm the Director of Marketing at Boosted AI. We build AI for investment managers, hedge funds, asset managers. Some of the world's largest brokerages are using our platform, which is called Alpha, to make faster investment decisions. One thing that I'm really excited about is that we work at an AI company, so there's already a pretty high bar for what matters in this industry. And I'm learning internally, learning from all of the other great marketers in the world, and certainly learning as we all go. So really excited. I'm showing off Claude Code today and something about taking sort of skills and fashioning them into a working prototype much faster than we would otherwise. So really looking forward to showing off. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Rob, you want to go next?
Hey, folks. I'm Rob Palumbo, founder and CEO at Week Over Week. Week Over Week is a fractional CMO service for venture-backed startups. Prior to Week Over Week, I've led growth marketing at fintechs like Borrowwell and Policy.me over in Canada, I've been a founder of a marketing analytics company myself, and I've also worked in the venture world inside of a venture studio. So really excited to chat today about how we are using Claude Cowork inside of the portfolio companies I work with to deploy agents for various marketing activities and to achieve better growth outcomes.
Awesome. Great. And then Libby, you want to round us out?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Libby. Very excited to be here. I'm the creative and brand lead at Kickoff, which is a consumer fintech company serving millions of Americans today. For today's show and tell, I'm going to be sharing our creative team's tool called Spite, which is a tool that helps us accelerate creative testing.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we've done our intros. Let's dive into the demos. Libby, you want to kick us off? You just introduce yourself. But I know at Kickoff, you folks do a ton of paid media advertising, an area that a lot of CMOs on the call and marketers I think are very interested in. Love to hear more about Spike and how you're using AI to create a lot of your ads.
Sounds good. Yeah, totally. Alrighty, I'll jump straight in. Let me try sharing my screen. Okay, I think you should see this now. Are you able to see this?
We're good.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'll be talking about Spite today, but just to give a little bit of context, at Kickoff, we really embrace AI innovation across the company, and we believe that AI is something that can help all teams, not just engineering teams. And so this is some snapshots from our recent Hack Week, where we have teams from hiring all the way to marketing, really presenting their innovations in AI to help the way we work. And Spite was actually a Hack Week project that won an award and something that we're still using today. So like you mentioned earlier, the problem that we're really looking to solve is something that a lot of marketers here, I'm sure, can relate with. If you're advertising on platforms like Meta and TikTok, these platforms really reward volume. The more volume you put in, the more data you get back, and the better that you can optimize. But the catch is when we think about content, especially video, which is something that Meta really likes, editing video can take a lot of time. So for example, here, if you're looking to edit 8 variants of a video, that can easily take a full workday. And so that friction can really cause slowdown when it comes to testing velocity. And so insert Spite, which we like to joke internally, a tool that we built out of spite because the world says that AI is going to take creative jobs, but we really don't believe that. We think that AI is only going to enhance our work. But essentially, it stands for Strategic Production and Iteration Testing Engine. At the core of it, Spite is a tool that lets you iterate on winning ads from your campaign. You know that these ads have really strong content, body, and ending, but you want to test out, different value props in the hook and really identify if there are other messaging that resonates. And so Spite is an engine that lets you really quickly swap out these different value props. The reason why we chose to focus on the iteration process versus net new creatives is because when we think about kind of where AI is today, we really believe that creative strategy and then ideation still belongs with human creatives. And then AI is something that can really help us accelerate the work that we do. And so something that we all really like to look at when it comes to marketers. So here's how we compare traditional editing pipeline versus Spite. So from a traditional standpoint, I mentioned earlier an example of like 8 variants. Previously with editing processes, it can take up to 8 hours. And if you assume that an editor's cost is about like $55 an hour, that's $440. With Spite, we've been able to really cut that down to, 3 minutes to generate 8 variants, and that cuts costs down to $2.75. So we are seeing a total time and cost savings of 99%, which is really significant. And it's really been able to change the way we work on the creative team and the growth team as well, and really speed up the velocity of learning on our paid social. So that's really exciting for us. So I'm going to jump into a quick demo here to show you kind of how the tool works. So essentially you pull in the video that you identified as a winner. So here we identified this UGC content that performed really well. This is for our product, which is a grant cash advance. And so we preloaded it with like a number of value props that we worked really well for us. So we wanted to swap out the original hook with all these different value props. We have a lot of voices that we can match to the original content creator's voice. So that way it'll create a really seamless transition. And so you can, create a lot of modifications in terms of like what you want the output to be. And so you're able to select background footage of what you want the hook to live on. You can use, different stock footage. You can also use the original video content as well. So once you have all of that selected, you'll click generate. And then I'm going to speed up here because it takes about a minute or so, or like 1 to 3 minutes to actually generate the videos. But you'll see here, I think it's right about, okay, right here, you'll see that it generated 8 different variants in just under 2 minutes, which is really exciting. And so like all these variants have new different hooks, all different value props that you put in. And in the next slide, I'm going to share with you kind of like what the output feels and sounds like, so you can see how we were able to get the new intro hook to feel seamless to the original content.
I can get $200 the same day I requested.
Let's be real, prices aren't dropping. With Grant Cash Advance, you can get $25 to $300 fast. There's no credit check.
So yeah, you'll see here that the intro hook was, like with this AI tool, we were identify where the original body content started. And so that's where we inserted the hook. The hook was able to identify a voice that was similar to the content creator's voice, so that it created like a seamless transition as well. So super cool to see that. In terms of the tech stack, there are a few different tools that we used. We're a non-technical tool. We're not a technical team on the creative side of things. So we use Claude as our main orchestrator. And then the main tools that we used were FFmpeg, which is the video editor. It does things like splicing, dicing, rendering. The Whisper AI, which is an open AI tool, is our interpreter. It basically transcribes the original content and helps us identify where the hook ends, where the body content starts, where the end starts as well. And then 11 Labs is our voiceover artist, and it helps us, create new voice generations that match the original content. So some quick tips for starting out if you are interested in creating solutions for the creative team. So number 1, start using AI right now. On kickoff, we've been using AI for a while now through our team. So before we even went into Hack Week to build Spite, we already had an idea of what if the different solutions were that we wanted to pull to build Spite. Fluency comes from doing, so just, like get in there, get in the weeds of things. And lastly, things are evolving really quickly. So things that, we tried out a year ago with AI are so different than what we were able to accomplish today. So we're always keeping tabs of, the latest and greatest when it comes to AI innovation. Number 2, AI will likely only get you halfway there. So really lean into your subject matter experts when it comes to becoming your product managers. For example, because the creative team were the ones that, designed the product, we really understood what the pain points are when it comes to creating optimized creatives when it comes to DR best practices. So we paid attention to, parsing out hooks versus body versus NCTA. We wanted to make sure the content continue to be, engaging. So we wanted to make sure we had good pacing, clean layouts, and also legibility across various dimensions. And lastly, this is very important but often overlooked, is prompt with precision. Oftentimes the output you get out is equal to the input you put in. So a simple framework that we like to do on the kickoff side of things is we identify who this is for, what the persona is, what the task at hand is, what your objectives are, what the constraints are, and then the inspiration, if you have any, and then what the output format should be. And typically this would give you a good starting point. And yeah, I think that's it from my end, but definitely excited to see kind of where AI has been opening up the possibilities for us across the different teams. I think we're continuing to be excited and keeping tabs of what's next.
Amazing, Libby, awesome. A couple of questions that have come up. Folks are curious about the performance maybe of some of those AI iterated ads versus the original. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I didn't put numbers right off the bat, but what we've really noticed is that there's definitely more openness from our audience in terms of like seeing AI content versus like human generated content. It is very comparable. So I think it is something that we're continuing to invest in, given that we see so much cost and time saving. So from a performance standpoint, it is very comparable.
Awesome. And so I guess one of the main pieces, as you called out, is really the amount of time your team is then able to allocate is 99% lower from a cost perspective or a time perspective. And so it allows you, I guess, to kind of iterate more, do more creative testing. I guess the biggest change factor, from pre-post, now that you've got Spun, like, what is the biggest change you find? Like, what is the creative team now able to do that you couldn't maybe do a year or two ago?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think definitely, volume is something that's really impacted. We've been able to put out new iterations really quickly, but it's also freed up a lot of our time to really focus on the creative strategy side of things, really do more of the deep dive into what's working, what's not working. So more of that, deep thinking and less of the, more grunt work of doing.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing that across the landscape of, moving to higher order tasks. And AI is enabling folks to, or freeing them rather, from some of these kind of repetitive, rote, but required tasks to get the ad out. But if AI can do more of the versioning, I can spend a lot more of my time thinking through the strategy of, well, what should we actually be saying for more assets? So very, very interesting. All right, great. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Phoebe, you're up next. Decagon, customer service. I think a lot of folks on the call are, they're marketers, they're founders, they're running promotions. There is a lot of customer engagement. When we were speaking a little, a month or two ago, you've been working, I think, on Decagon for over a year as well, similar to Libby. So lots of learning. So would love to kick it over to you and see what you've built at Wealthsimple with Decagon.
Awesome. Thank you. We have been working with Decagon now for 18 months, which is pretty crazy. So I'm excited to talk with everyone about how we are handling promotions and backdating promotions at scale. I want to dive into just a little bit of history in our Decagon journey before we talk about this specific example, because this didn't happen overnight. And everyone likes to think that you can build really fast with this, but there were a lot of learnings for us as we began. So we started by launching Decagon in Q4 of 2024. And we launched our Decagon support chat as like a very traditional AI support chat focused on our knowledge base and help center and just like basic AI containment. We then dove really fast, really hard into trying to build agentic actions and learned a lot and stopped and started quite a few times. It wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. In financial services, obviously, personal identifiable information is very key to figuring out how you maintain data security. Giving a third-party tool like Decagon access to our backend systems to do read-write actions for true agentic actions was something we were really cautious about. And so we learned a lot as we started to build agentic actions. we took a step back and we started to do what we called like read agentic actions, where we focused on giving Decagon customer data about the customer's account without them taking action on behalf of the client. And so that was our first stepping stone into this true agentic action. We then launched AI voice with Decagon in just 30 days. And now we've gone back to building some of these like true agentic actions. And so what that looks like for us on the promotion space is we run lots of promotions. I see many folks from Canada on this call today. I'm sure you're familiar with things like our Apple promo, or right now we're running our Unreal deal. And our promotions are really exciting and really big, but you have to register for these promotions. So the promotions are typically if you move X amount of funds over to Wealthsimple and you register for the promotion, you can then qualify for whatever this promotion is, a new iPhone, cashback match promo, something like that. But you must register for the promotion before you make a qualifying transfer. I don't always read the rules of things. Our clients don't either. And so sometimes what happens is you don't register for the promo, but you've just transferred $100,000 to Wealthsimple. And now you can't register or get the promotion. And so oftentimes what happens right as we launch a promo is clients are chatting into us in support. So let's think about a scenario. Someone raves to you about Wealthsimple. You're so excited. Monday morning, you transfer $125,000 from RBC. A few hours later, you're browsing Wealthsimple's app or the website, and you realize there was a promo you would have qualified for, but you didn't register. First thing you're going to do is reach out to support. When we launch promos, we are bombarded with inquiries about promo registration eligibility and things like missing the promo registration. Our support team is going to look at the promo rules, the terms and conditions, the client's account, and determine if they are eligible to be backdated. Because oftentimes we will honor the backdating and allow the client to register so that their qualifying deposit does actually qualify. What this looked like before was a client would chat in, it would get escalated to a human agent. The human agent would review their account. They would probably escalate it to a more senior team or a back office team who would then make the adjustment in the client's account. This was 3+ steps, multiple humans, multiple days, just to handle a simple promo eligibility question. We had the rules listed out. We know the promo eligibility guidelines. And so our workflow optimization team, which is a team focused exclusively on agent workflows on our support team and figuring out how to make our teams more efficient, figured out that we could optimize this process. And so we built an AI-contained process. Decagon now handles our promo backdating end to end. No humans are required. We don't have 100% containment on this because naturally you sometimes still want to get to a human to get confirmation for these things. But now we have a Decagon tool and an agent operating procedure where the chat comes in. Decagon is going to check the promo eligibility data using a tool that we've run to check our backend about the client's account. AI is then going to evaluate if the client is eligible based on all of the eligibility criteria we've written. If so, it will explain the process to the client and actually say, I can adjust this for you so that you qualify. This is irreversible. Do you want to do it? It'll present the client a form. The client says yes or no. And if yes, the AI agent is going to go into our back end and adjust the client's eligibility. So now their $125,000 promo qualifies them for their iPhone. This is all done through a Decagon operating procedure and tool that securely calls metadata from our app. I can't show you exactly what this looks like in most examples because it contains client PII, but this is a real chat that I screenshotted from Decagon. So client chats in and says they just transferred money and they're planning to move more money, but they didn't register. The AI agent is going to review their eligibility and help them. Client confirms. And then what we can't see here is that there was a form that was sent to the client in the chat that answers a couple of questions about if they want to proceed. Once they do, they go and do a back-end adjustment. These logs are actually showing that the adjustment was made, and then the client is contained. So we have hundreds of chats like this every single week, and now we're containing about 70% of them just from this operating procedure. So this was possible through a custom-built Decagon tool that is specifically trained on the criteria of every single promo. Each time we run a promo, we update this tool, we update the criteria and make sure everything is ready before we launch a promo. Our workflow optimization team spent time looking at how this worked with our agents today, building and designing the right guardrails, and designing the product requirements that then came to my team to actually build this tool. And then we have really clear guardrails. The AI cannot go off the rails here. It knows exactly what it can and cannot do. So key takeaways. We want to always start with the client problem. When we were building agent operating procedures and our first agentic actions with Decagon, we tried to do the big flashy agentic actions first. But finding things that were true friction for a client, even if they were a small amount of tickets for our support team in a given week, actually gave us more opportunity to learn and test without it being some big flashy thing. You want to slowly build. You're going to build one piece of this, test it, build again, adjust. We are constantly tweaking all of our agent operating procedures in Decagon. Every change we make teaches us something new. We're always focused on containment. How do we make sure that we are containing issues in one-touch solves? And if we can't get the AI to solve it, how can we get it to the right person to solve it with one-touch human solves? The worst possible experience I can build is something that touches the AI bot, then goes to a level 1 agent at our BPO, then gets escalated to a back office agent, then gets escalated to a level 2 agent. We want to contain and one-touch solve as much as possible. And then I think my most important takeaway here, obsess over QA. The only reason this works for us is because we are obsessive with what we build. Every single time we build something, I have 5 humans who are focused on QAing that deployment and then QAing all of the conversations that happen with that new deployment. So these are former support agents who know this space really well, know what it would look like if they handled this ticket, and they obsess over how the AI has an output. We then tweak and tweak and tweak every single day until we get this right. It's not perfect the day we turn on an operating procedure, but if we obsess over QA instead of just letting it ride, we can catch mistakes early and find ways to improve the process. I think I flew through that, but I'm happy to take some questions. I'm sorry I can't show a real life demo of this.
No, I think the screenshots we appreciate those. And I've seen some in the chats posts are like, oh my God, it's so cool to see how the back end of this promotion works. So for folks who are in Canada, it's a nice snapshot there. Couple questions. There was some, you kind of spoke about this a little bit, but obviously you're dealing with a lot of, personal information. Couple questions just around how are you navigating the security of that, the cybersecurity risk, the agents using this information? How have you approached that problem? Because you're obviously a financial institution.
Yeah, so we don't have just unfettered access to our client information for Decagon. We have very specific tool calls that call our backend for specific criteria of data depending on the context of the conversation. So we've built all of these metadata calls that say, go look for the data on promotion eligibility. Get that data. And all you're getting is like a binary yes, no most of the time. We're doing most of that logic and decision-making on our side and then just passing Decagon simple data so that we're not giving Decagon a list of the client's accounts and the total amounts in every single account.
Very cool. So it's a very targeted, associated with the specific use case. You've ring-fenced that and it goes in and does those pieces. Really
exactly.
Interesting. A comment that I thought was really cool from Libby's take on kind of allowing, the AI allows us to automate some tasks that previously took a long time for humans to do and freed up some capacity for them to do deeper thinking or more strategic work. What is the kind of L1 agents or the folks that were typically doing that? Like, what has that freed up their capacity to now do?
So we have a setup where I have a BPO team or L1 agents, and then we have our onshore agents. And we've started to move everything down. So things that our L2 onshore team were doing, our L1 BPO team now does. Things that the BPO team originally did have now almost entirely been consumed by our Decagon AI chat. And what we've done at the same time is built tools to allow our BPO agent to take on more complex issues as we moved the more basic issues away. So our triage center and our very basic entry points became our AI, and our BPO agents became more complex, and we've started to level everybody up. That means that we're reserving our onshore agents for the more complex or sensitive issues We, of course, don't want certain teams to have access to certain client data. And so we're really thoughtful about what types of issues go to what type of agent now that we can contain a lot with AI.
Very cool. And also, I think I heard a moment, which is, connecting into Libby's theme around that process might have taken a lot longer if an agent was involved, individual human agent, while if it's automated with Decagon, the customer challenge is resolved faster and, frees up the capacity for humans to be doing more complicated, higher order work versus kind of the routine kind of cut and paste, which is interesting. Very cool. Again, just a reminder for folks, we have a Q&A function. Feel free to type some questions if you've got them. The different presenters will be able to kind of answer those after. We're going to flip gears a little bit. Thank you, Phoebe. That was an awesome snapshot into how you've agenticized customer service as it relates to marketing promotions. We're going to move into the world of Claude Code. Fraser, we've worked together for many years. You head up the marketing department at a early stage B2B AI company. And I think, there's a lot of folks on the call who are wanting to do a lot of things with smaller teams and would love to see, what you've been building recently with Claude. So feel free to kind of demo in here for Claude Code.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just start sharing screen, but exactly. It's, I think, kind of a little bit different from how, our previous presenters, Phoebe and Libby, have gone about it, but like we're a bit of a smaller team. So I think a lot of people here can relate to the idea of being like a marketing team of say 5 to 10 or less, and how people are sort of asking more and more of you, but how do you actually get it done? So what I'm going to be talking about today is sort of going from like scattered thoughts where you're maybe an individual or you're kind of a small team into taking those and turning it into a callable system. The sort of workflow that I'll be walking through is about website, but this, as I'm going to show later, kind of applies to a bunch of different use cases. So jumping in here, I'm sure people can relate to this. Every week on LinkedIn, it's something like growth is dead. No, actually, brand is dead. Actually, no, it's GPT that's dead. And I don't know if folks have seen this, but there's a new OpenAI release of 5.5 where people are saying Claude is now dead. It's pretty exhausting and pretty hard to keep up. Sometimes makes me wish I were doing something else, maybe on a farm somewhere. But meanwhile, all of this sort of stuff is that I'm still behind on a bunch of campaigns and trying to do more with less. So you kind of have to find a way to tune out that noise. In doing so, I think that everybody here can relate to this. There's a knowledge problem at your company. You know a bunch of stuff. You know kind of what matters to your customer. You know what is most important because you've done it via like ICP research that kind of maybe lives in some sort of Notion page. You've done positioning docs that maybe live in Google Drive, but maybe were only updated like nicely 3 months ago or 6 months ago or a year ago. And then maybe you did a great deck for sales kickoff, but that hasn't really been touched in a while. And all of those kind of live somewhere else. And they're maybe callable, but not as much as you would like. I'm sure you could maybe include it on like an onboarding doc, but it's not necessarily a full system that your whole team can use. So enter Claude Skills. What is that? Just sort of briefly, it's a file that Claude is going to read before it starts working. So I would say the biggest difference I've seen when I was working with, say, a GPT is that you kind of have to give it context every single time. Whereas with skills, you're starting to like, it's starting to know much more about you. So I would say the sort of tips that I would give here is write it once, dump all of that stuff that you did in Notion, all of that stuff from Google Drive, the decks, etc. Dump that everything in. And say build a skill. Then it becomes shareable that you can download that across your company. And the thing that's pretty exciting as it starts growing is that you can start stacking them. So for us, we've built ICP docs. Then on top of that, we've built positioning docs. Then on top of that, we've got voice docs, etc. And it just sort of all starts to grow from there. So sort of walking through those different steps, we've got building the Claude skill. So what I did, I was kind of lazy about it, to be honest. I just sort of took all of that stuff that I did and I said, build me a skill for ICP. In our case, again, we sell AI to investment managers. So one of our ICPs is hedge funds and asset managers. I just said, here's all of our docs. So my sort of questions are, what keeps them up at night? What is exciting them? What turns them off? And then on top of all of that, we're layering in April Dunford. I'm sure many of you already know who she is, but fellow Torontonian, and I just a lot of her work is great. So folks look up obviously awesome if you haven't. But we're sort of taking that ICP and then layering in a positioning layer. Here, I'm just sort of showing all of the various skills that we built in GitHub that other folks at the company can start downloading. And now these become callable at any time. So sort of next step after that is that you're going to run this skill against what already exists. In our case, we did a website audit, taking that ICP, going to look at our website and kind of giving us some tips on what we could maybe be doing better. Again, I think small team marketers will relate to this of like, you kind of become blind to your own work, right? Where you're kind of like, I think it's great. I think everything's great. But having something come in and kind of be a little bit harsher with you is great. So that ICP skill layered on top of positioning sort of found for us, we're trying to do too much. We've got our audiences, forgive me here, I'm in downtown Toronto and there's always lots of ambulances and cop cars and stuff like that. So
you're good, Fraser. We can't hear it.
Thank you.
You're good.
Okay, perfect. But so anyway, so we've got too many audiences on one homepage. It's telling us that our claims are differentiated. It's not that they aren't good claims. It's that like for our audience, you want to make sure that you're being very specific in what you're talking about and making sure that it's something that people care about. And then again, April Dunford really focuses in on category framing where, you know, you're kind of making sure that people have the right lens through which you're looking at stuff. So this is all great, you know, pretty cool, whatever. It gives you a Notion page. This Notion page is going to be a bunch of feedback, a bunch of suggestions for next, but like Notion pages do not get decisions. So you kind of need a visual, especially as you start looking at like, hey, I want to go to my CEO with this. Bringing them a big like 80 Notion page is not going to get the job done. So what became pretty cool for us is using first we started with Figma Mate, and I would say that Claude Design has kind of taken that over. To the callback I had made earlier to our AI teams, we've got a great design team here that's kind of pushing on a lot of this stuff, which is why we were able to kind of get it in our styling so quickly here. But like, I'm just going to flip through and taking that Notion page, taking what it knows about your audience with that ICP, it's giving you a bunch of different pages that you can bring to your C-suite to get approvals done way faster. So now, again, I think small teams can relate to this. You're able to be much more nimble in how quickly you can action on things. Again, I want to pause here for a second and sort of reiterate what I think Libby and Phoebe also said, that ultimately, though, this is still more important to be like the human understanding taste. We are the marketers that like have the expertise that know this stuff. So if you're putting bad stuff in there, you're going to get bad stuff out. So do invest the time to do it well and to think about it, and also to see that the output that you get is something that you think is good, right? So it's not about removing humans from the equation. It's about making sure that the human that the output is still good and relying on your expertise there. So that's just sort of one page. And then again, I wanted to sort of hint on some of the other stuff that this has unlocked for us here at Boosted. It's BDR and sales call scoring, sort of all in all sales enablement, including close loss automation, which, you know, to Jonathan's point earlier on revenue, not revenue can also be saved money. So what we did here was it saved us from having to launch into a big sales enablement platform by being able to do it all in Cloud Code, callable by all of our sales team. Our content is getting better and we're able to do it more often. Excuse me. Something that I'm really excited about is we're doing product marketing now from the pull request. So instead of speaking the language of the engineer, it's speaking the language of our end users. And we're able to do that much faster and in a way that is really speaking to our audience. And then Jonathan, to the other point that you've made on like net new things, video and Claude Design is something that we hadn't really been able to do before. Again, I'm sure small teams can relate to this. I've tried Loom, I've tried Veed, I've tried Canva, and all of their AI functionality, and it's not nearly really done the job, but video and Claude Design is unlocking something net new. Also institutional grade research is something that we've been able to do as well.
So
And
just
my sort of
like the just going back 1 or 2 slides, that this is basically a web page that you one more. I think you had like all your docs. This is a web page that you made. So you kind of ingested a lot of your information, and this is now a site that your sales team can go navigate to, bring customers to. Is that right?
Oh, this one is internal. So
Yep.
things like, our sales call scoring and BDR scoring and stuff like that, that lives internally, where it's a skill that folks can call on in their own Claude, but also in Claude projects.
Yep.
And then this one is more of an external site where, again, we still have to reach out to our various designers. We use Webflow, so we still have to kind of get this uploaded into Webflow, but it's just sort of like this approval and this actionability becomes much faster on us being able to move through the pipeline of getting things approved.
Approved and done. I think, one of the biggest challenges, you said, you guys have a small team, resources are always super tight. Can we even get on the product roadmap of the dev team, the web team, to even get these pieces built? You basically are taking a lot of your, knowledge around the Notion docs of your ICP. What are the key claims that we've got? And you were basically able to create this mostly yourself. Obviously, you guys have very talented designers, systems, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I would just say last thing is like, make sure that, just get in there, like everybody else has been saying, build that skill. And I think it's what we're all experts in something, some people it's B2B, some people it's B2C, some people maybe know more about like influencer marketing. Some people maybe know more about content marketing, whatever it may be. Just get in there and start trying to build a bunch of skills. And I think you'll really unlock a lot there.
A couple questions for you before we flip to Rob. What is Claude Design? They were curious about what Claude Design is, or maybe it's hot off the press for folks, but tell us what that is.
I do believe it's hot off the press. So like, again, what we were using before was Figma Make, and Claude Design now is within like going to Claude.ai. I believe it's mostly on the web functionality. It's really cool. You should try it out yourself. But it's unlocking a lot of stuff for us. One of the coolest things that we've done is be able to sort of take that ICP stuff, take a bunch of like screen grabs and say, go make a video for me. That's a walkthrough of this use case. And like, I'll admit it takes a lot of back and forth, but it's producing very cool results so far. And I actually think, again, in terms of saving money, maybe you can get rid of Canva.
Wow.
Although Canva's great.
Statement, Fraser. Hopefully no one from the Canva marketing team is logged in. But
Hot
I think
exactly.
Hot takes. But no, I think one of the lessons here is this space is evolving very quickly. And if, when we had a conversation 2 months ago, you wouldn't have even been referencing probably Claude Design. You've been, very much Figma Make. And now, these features are continuing to be added. So it's a space to watch. But appreciate, Fraser, there's a couple more questions maybe in the chat. Feel free to kind of maybe tackle those. We'll flip quickly to Rob, who's going to kind of round us out from our demos perspective. Thank you, Fraser. On Claude Cowork. It's getting confusing now. My God, there's Claude Code, there's Claude Cowork. So Rob, would love to hear, one, welcome back. I think you were on our first CMO show and tell in September. This is our 4th one. And I think, this also reinforces the theme that the space continues to move really, really quickly. And the stuff you were demoing in September is wildly different than I think your walkthrough that you're going to do for Claude Cowork. So would love to hear, how you as a fractional CMO working with a variety of early stage startups are using Claude Cowork in ways that, folks I think on the call might be very curious and interested to see. So I'll let you kind of take things over, Rob, for our final demo.
Thanks for having me back, Jonathan. So today, folks, I'm going to chat about Claude Cowork for growth marketing. And as John referenced earlier, I serve as a fractional CMO for a number of different brands. So what that means is the optimist point of view is that I don't have a boss and I get to run my own life. The pessimist point of view is that I have 5 different bosses and I need to operate against 5 different jobs. And if you take that point of view, you need help to do 5 different jobs. And Claude Cowork has been an incredibly helpful resource for me in being able to really do the same kind of impact that a full-time CMO could have except on a fractional basis. So I'll talk about how to set Claude Cowork up. I'll show 6 different demos. And if we have time at the end, I can also show off some Claude design stuff too, because it seems like that's of interest to the audience. But let's get into Claude Cowork. So what is Claude Cowork? It is essentially, how I describe it, is Claude Code for dummies. For folks that may be intimidated by some of the more technical aspects of setting up Claude Code, like having to use a terminal, for instance, Claude Cowork has many of the same capabilities. You can set up agents. You can use tools and skills and projects and long-term planning capabilities. But it allows you to do it inside the Claude desktop instead of a command line terminal. So really, the way I describe it is, before Claude Cowork, a marketer had to operate tools like Meta Ads or Google Analytics inside of a UI and do things manually. Now with Cowork, you can collect your tools and operate them with simple natural language prompts and agentically, meaning you can do tasks on repeat over long time horizons. There's 2 ways that Cowork operates the tools that marketers use every day. The first is via an API or MCP. MCP is basically just an API that is easily legible to an AI. However, when there's no API or MCP available, Claude Cowork is also capable of either taking over your browser or your computer use to do tasks agentically as well, which is pretty awesome. I'd say it's slower and less reliable and uses more tokens, but really gives you the kind of complete coverage that you as a marketer might need to do different tasks. So how do you get set up on Claude Cowork? Well, it's really simple. Just download the Claude desktop app. You do need a paid plan, so any of their Pro, Max, Team, or Enterprise plans. And then Claude has a really clever way of helping you get set up, where you can just run a simple command called /setup Cowork, and Claude will walk you through different questions to set you up on skills, on memory, on different projects you might want to set up. So for instance, they actually already have a number of marketing skills out of the box that you can install into your Cowork environment. It'll suggest plugins, connectors, etc. In terms of setting up your Claude Cowork to be successful for you in your context, there's various different building blocks that are important. Those include memory. Those are files that you set up once to give Claude context, similar to what Fraser was describing earlier about who your ICP might be, your role, etc. You can set up projects. In my case, as a fractional CMO, I set up a different project for every client I work with. And then within those projects, I have different memory files and data files. Connectors, very important for Claude Cowork. Those are essentially connections between the different tools that you want Claude Cowork to operate and the model. I'll demonstrate a few of those in a moment. And then within connectors, there are what are called tools. Those are functions Claude can call on behalf of a connector. So for Meta Ads, for example, you can allow the model to create ads, to create new campaigns, to set budgets, and so on. Then there are what are called skills. This is distinct from a tool in that a skill will provide more context around a sort of like playbook of different types of things you want to do. You can schedule tasks. And then what's really neat is you can also, and this is something I do a lot, I might be in a meeting for one client and I want to do a task for another. You can use what's called dispatch to text Claude to do a task from your phone onto the Claude Cowork app. So what's a memory file? That's really just a like kind of simple text file that you give to remember context. So I create one of these for every client I have. What's the role? Who's the ICP? Positioning, channels, so on. And then important is to set up projects. Again, I set up a project for every client. Within each project, you can save memory files, you can save data files. And then when you load a new task within a project, Claude will have all of that context on the client and all of the prior work already kind of baked in there. You can also pull files from your local computer, so you don't need to store them in the cloud either. Next are what are called connectors. I mentioned these earlier, but these are kind of the custom tools and data sources that matter most to your workflows. A few that I'll demonstrate today include a connector called Pipeboard. I use that to connect Meta ads and Google ads, but then there are other kind of common data sources like HubSpot for your CRM, Slack if you have internal comms that you want Claude to be able to reference in order to make decisions or understand context. And in my role, I also use Granola. In fact, I'm running it right now for meeting notes, another really important point of context. So let's get into the demos though. So there's going to be 6 demos I'm going to talk about today. They range from kind of outbound work related to B2B marketing to specific leads, to more of the paid ads type of work that you do on a side of a Google or a Meta. All right, let's look at lead enrichment as an example demo of something you could set up in Cowork. So in this example, imagine a B2B SaaS company that has a inbound lead form. With Cowork, it's possible to set up a connection between HubSpot, Slack, and then Claude to enrich every lead as it comes in. So in this kind of example workflow, a new lead hits HubSpot, Slack gets pinged, and then Cowork can research that company, score it, enrich it in HubSpot, and then also send a message in Slack explaining whether this new company is an ICP or not. Again, in this context, it sounds complicated, but once you've connected HubSpot, Slack to your Cowork, it's as simple as giving it natural language commands to tell it what you want to do. And again, the kind of context that you provide to Cowork starts to build upon itself to allow it to be more intelligent in how it actually can respond to those kind of actions. And then you could set this up on a schedule to just fire every time a new lead gets created.
Rob, you got
There's
about 3 or 4 minutes, so just want to give you a sense of like when you're thinking through which ones to go through.
Sounds good. We're almost at the finish line here. So next is an outbound example. So in this case, we've got a connection between Claude Cowork and the tool Apollo and Instantly. So in this case, once you've set it up with Cowork, can natural language say, find me 50 of my target customers via Apollo, and then send them the case study via Instantly. And Cowork having those connectors in place can execute that agentically on your behalf. I'm going to share just a couple more. Another example of a skill you can run is Google Ads. So connect Google Ads to Claude Cowork via MCP. Run a skill to say, find me the campaigns that are overspending, find me the campaigns that are underspending, make a recommendation, and then approve the recommendation, yes or no. Typically, I recommend you do not let Cowork or Code make budget recommendations unobserved fashion. I always like to have approval for any kind of budget or dollar changes, but it can be very powerful for making the recommendations and then once you approve them, actually executing them. I'll actually pause here, but what I'll do is I can share this deck via John for after the meeting and can stop for any questions.
Awesome. Couple of questions that popped up. Have you thought about using any of the other LLMs other than Claude, or you just kind of mapped into Claude and that's kind of how you've been building more of your work?
It's not really a contest in my view at this point. Anthropic has really pulled away from the other frontier model providers, particularly in terms of its connector ecosystem and the level of how intuitive it is, even for a non-technical user, to start to set up the skills and memory and so on. Like, I've tried doing similar activities in OpenAI. I've tried doing similar activities in Gemini, and I just have found that Anthropic is the easiest to use and has the most kind of robust ecosystem.
Got it. And in terms of, I guess, the skill that you've built, you have a variety of them. What have you found is the biggest unlock? Which one do you think is moving the needle most for you, or that you're using the most, that's delivering the most impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of impact, the skills related to Google Ads have been most impactful for me, because Google Ads is typically a channel that requires a lot of kind of human hours, analytical skill, technical skill, and I think it is uniquely suitable for an agentic type of workflow. Like, unlike Meta Ads, which has, I'd say, a little more art to it in terms of your creative decisioning, Google, it is all specifically on search, like natural language information. So with Claude Cowork, I've been able to scale up some of the accounts I manage, by like 50% in terms of the revenue generated from the channel, without, the corresponding kind of increase in cost. And it's, I think, just a channel that is uniquely suited for agentic work. So that would be the kind of area of like most ROI that I've seen.
Very cool. Last question. Some folks have mentioned, the outbound or lead enrichment relative to things like Clay. I don't know if you've used that or not, but just how are you finding those? Because I know there's some tools out there that kind of are also advanced in those areas.
Yeah, I used to use Clay. I think like the difference is that Clay was almost like built in a pre Claude Code / Claude Cowork environment, which imagined like a marketer going inside of a UI and like setting up some of these kind of workflows. Same with like an N8N. And now Cowork and Code have kind of leapfrogged it. So, I mean, you can do the same kind of capabilities as Clay yourself without buying Clay. I know Clay has an MCP and API though, so if you like are tethered to the Clay ecosystem, you could connect it to Cowork and do the same kind of work. But I think what the future is for a lot of SaaS products, and this is marketing tech included, is they just make their data and capabilities available via these kind of building blocks that I was describing earlier. And if Clay wants to win, they're going to need to make their tools available. They're going to need to make their data available. They're going to need to make skills available, because more folks are going to be using a tool like Cowork to operate them.
It's wild to think through. We're already like, oh, Clay, this like will be more built more legacy in Clay. We weren't even talking about that 3 years ago. So the space is moving so quickly. Thank you, Rob. Just to kind of quickly round us out on, CMO show and tell. We brought, the purpose of this is to bring, practical use cases of how people in the marketing function are building with AI. We heard Libby dive into, from the creative side of the fence, how her team has taken, video editing from 8 hours down to 3 minutes, and allowing them to create a lot more variance in terms of their promotions that are, performing as strongly as their, kind of human-made ads previously. Phoebe showed us an end-to-end agent that was able to, manage customer service requests around, marketing promotions and things that, again, used to have to happen manually over the course of days. Over 70% of those L1 tickets now, that first order ticket, is managed by Decagon, an AI tool that her team has built over the last year. Fraser, did a deep dive for us on Claude Code and how you can actually make websites by ingesting things like your ICP documents in Notion and your sales collateral, and actually use those materials and not have to, brief the web team or brief the eng team, and actually create physical, website outputs. And Rob gave us a great primer on Claude Cowork, which is, I love that kind of Claude Code for Dummies, and gave us a bit of a 101 on, how folks are using these different skills to analyze paid media on Google, to do lead enrichment, or to do outbounding. I want to thank, the presenters. This is a lot of work to do. And in addition to this is not their day job, I can assure you that, folks. So thank you so much, folks, for taking the time. Hopefully everyone found this useful. And again, the goal of CMO Show and Tell is to really just showcase that AI is moving so quickly. It's super exciting, but it's very overwhelming to try and keep up with it all. Gives us some very practical use cases that marketers are building right now in market. Thanks everyone for dialing in. Appreciate the time. And we'll see you on another CMO Show and Tell soon.